Chapter 5, curse number 5. And again, this is in the book, based on the book, The Redeemed Earth, Healing the Curse of the Fall. And so this is going to be the first sign that is on the man in the curse of the fall. And so the fifth aspect of the curse of the fall was spoken to the man. As the other aspects of the curse, it applies to men, women, cultures, societies, and governments of the world. And so although the sign is on the man, it's not limited to the man, as we saw concerning the 3 signs that were on the woman. So this is the first of 3 signs that were spoken over the man, and men are especially vulnerable to these particular curses, this 5th one being the first of 3. And yet in that, it also affects men, women, cultures, societies. And so Genesis chapter 3, verse 17, then to Adam, he said, now God is speaking words, subjecting the earth to futility in the hope of the manifestation of the sons of God who will liberate the earth from this futility eventually. He says, because you have heeded the voice of your wife, you have eaten from the tree which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it. Now, this verse does not say because a man listened to a woman, because a husband listened to his wife. It's because the man listened to his wife when she was speaking the words of the one who had come to deceive them. He says, because you have heeded the voice of your wife and have eaten from the tree which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it, cursed is the ground for your sake. In other words, it's for your sake. The ground is cursed. It's not a curse to be a destruction, but a curse to say the ground is going to be a difficult place for you. It's going to be something that causes pain to you. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. So here we see that the man was cursed for heeding the voice of his wife when she was speaking the words of the deceiver. The problem was that what the woman said was not in agreement with what God said, because there are many times when my wife says something that's God, I should heed that voice. It's the voice of God. But if she was speaking the voice of deception in our home, I have the responsibility of a man not to heed that voice, not to condemn or shame her, to cover her, to love her, but to stand up and to join with her to rise against that voice. Adam didn't rise up when the voice of deception came into his home. So the problem was that what the woman said was not in agreement with what God said. So this curse is about death upon the ground and the strongholds of apathy. In other words, the ground is going to be difficult to labor in, difficult to cultivate, difficult to see it serve and be a blessing. And so the man is going to be distracted, going to be easy to be apathetic toward God, because there are going to be circumstances, situations, things that are prickly, thorny. It says that thorns and thistles will come from the ground. So this curse is about death upon the ground and the strongholds of apathy. So what does the curse of apathy look like? Well, it produces expressions like, I hate this job. So you're having to work. The work should be providing for you. It should be blessing you, but it's difficult. It's not a fun place to be. It's not easy to attach to this job. I don't care about this place. Sounds like this is apathy. I hate this job. I don't care about this place. Life really stinks. What does it matter anyway? Things never change. These are all expressions of apathy. I hate this job. I don't care about this place. Life really stinks. What does it matter anyway? Things never change. These statements are made because we live in a world that is under the stronghold of a cursed ground. And so a stronghold of a cursed ground, the land which we are mandated to possess, is bound to a stronghold of curse. It's filled with things that prick us and offend us. It's filled with things that resist us. It's filled with thorns and thistles. The word said that the ground would be filled with thorns and thistles from this time on. It would be cursed for your sake. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth. So it's filled with things that resist us, that poke us, filled with thorns and thistles. And it's very easy to think that life is about the things that require our response or our attention. So things poke us, prick us. This job requires my attention. my wife is wanting time, my time as her husband, but this job requires my attention. Don't bother me, honey. And then you get this attitude, apathy starts coming in. And sometimes the apathy goes in the direction of relationships toward one another because of this curse of futility. So true reality is that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. And so we can see too many things. There's too many thorns and thistles. And so we have a history of this throughout time. In Hebrews chapter 11, the chapter that talks about people of faith, in Hebrews 11, verse 1, it says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, for by it the elders obtained a good testimony. By faith we understand that the worlds or ages, aeons is the Greek word there, the worlds, the ages were framed by the word of God, by the rhema, God speaking, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are visible. Now, this is not talking about the worlds as God created them. I believe it's talking about the ages, not cosmos, but the ages, the aeons, the generations, the worlds, the aeon of Noah, the aeon or the age of Abraham, the aeon or the age of Samson, the aeon, the age of these various people who obtained a good testimony in the history as men and women of God. And so they had hope. And so faith became the substance that framed their world, and they got different results because they did not look to the world that they lived in. They looked to the promises that God said would come into their world. So by faith, worlds are framed, as in Hebrews 11. That word, they for created, the worlds were framed. It's not created from nothing. It's like to take a pile of rubble and to turn it into building material for destiny, to take what looks bad and turn it to something good. Like God says, I take what the enemy intended for evil and I work it out for good. I take the very circumstances that you think would overcome you, overpower you, and I use them to serve you. I cause them to be the material that can frame your aeon, frame your age. And so this faith frames worlds, hearing God. So the realm that we cannot see will change the world that we can see. But because there is a curse of apathy in the earth, we are busy with all the thorns and thistles of life. And so we can see things. So we're busy with all the thorns and thistles of life. Curse number 5. Much of our lives are spent being distracted by the lifeless things of aimless distractions. Much of our life is distractions. Even in this present season, my goodness, this year has been a whirlwind of thorns and thistles, things that poke your flesh, things that prick your flesh, try to get your attention, make you apathetic toward life or apathetic toward the things of God. There's too many things that require your attention. We've spent most of our lives so busy and distracted by the curse of apathy, we miss the fact that there is a river that flows from inside of us that can change the dusty world we live in. We need resurrection life. This whole curse of the fall that came in through the sign, the first sign on the man, the ground is cursed for your sake, thorns and thistles it will bring forth to you. And so this is actually a gift that requires us to manifest, men and women, cultures and societies, to manifest as sons of God, to manifest as those who are led by the Spirit of God, specifically led by a spirit of might, led by a spirit of resurrection life. When everything around us is poking us from dusty, dry, dead places, and our hearts are tempted to be dead toward God, we need resurrection life, the spirit of might. We need to be led by the spirit of might. Just like in a world that has spiritual warfare, many lords, we need to be led by one Lord, the Spirit of the Lord, a desire that turns our barren place, our desert place into a watered garden, paradise restored, a personal relationship with God, reconnected, where we eat of the tree of life. In a world that is destined to be filled with worrisomeness and pain, when we think of the next generation, when we think of something beyond our present situation, it doesn't come without an expectation that can tempt us to lose our expectancy because it looks different than we think. So we need the spirit of wisdom. We need to be led by the spirit of wisdom so that we can be expectant to the point of birthing new things, things that come by God. And in a world that is filled with many submersions, where humans are submerged in other human identities, a wife is submerged, her desire is for her husband, where human desire is for someone from the outside in to meet your needs. We need the spirit of understanding so that we are submerged in life, and God gives us a holy testimony of life, each and every one of us, men, women, cultures, societies, communities, especially church communities, and in a world where we have a man ruling over his wife, a human ruling over another human, things controlling us, where authority gets redefined as control instead of life-giving release. We need to be led by the spirit of counsel so that we can know that each of us has an authority, male and female, and we're not under the control of anyone. We're submitted in relationship to each be contributors to the greater testimony of life. And also now we need to be led by the spirit of might in a world that's filled with a temptation to be apathetic toward life because so many things are growing out of the dry ground that require our attention. This job is poking my flesh. Oh, my relationships don't satisfy anymore. I need something that'll really poke me, something that'll really prick me from the outside in because I'm apathetic toward my world as it is. And so we've spent most of our lives so busy and distracted by the curse of apathy, we miss the fact that there is a river that flows from inside of us that can change the dusty world we live in. We need resurrection life. Now, Jesus lived a life fully joined to his Father in heaven. The zeal of his Father's house consumed him, as in John 2:17 says, then his disciples remembered that it was written, zeal for your house has eaten me up. Zeal has consumed me. If we live for the place of God, the house of God, the relationship with God, the house is not a structure. The house is a body, a dwelling place, a life-giving, living place. In a husband-wife relationship, the husband and wife is a body, a one flesh reality, a life-giving place. So the husband is not easily distracted from giving life to his wife by thorns and thistles if he's led by the spirit of might, resurrection life. I'm here for you, honey. I'm here to give life to you. She can receive the life that's being given because he's constantly awake to God. He's awake to be alive, and therefore he is a life giver. And it's the zeal of the house, the zeal of the habitation, the zeal of being the place of God's manifest presence that consumes him. This is fellowship, contributing who you are for the sake of someone else. So we need the manifest presence of God in our lives. This is what breaks this curse of apathy, is the manifest presence of God in our lives. We need the manifest presence of God in our lives. I need the manifest presence of God in my marriage. Bonnie and I need the manifest presence of God in our marriage. This church community, A-Life family, needs the manifest presence of God in our community. In our city, we need the manifest presence of God in our city. In our relationships with our friends, our leadership team, wherever our connections are, we need the manifest presence of God in this so that we're not easily distracted by things that poke the flesh from the outside in, so that a cursed ground will not be the stronger power than the blessed heart. But our blessed heart, blessed by being filled with the manifest presence of God, can be a greater grace, a greater strength than the thorns and thistles and the dry ground around us. And we'll find that we can be a river, a highway of holiness in the midst of a desert. So we need fellowship with the resurrected one every day. The spirit of resurrection life is in our lives to break the curse of an apathetic, dead earth. He is the spirit of might. This is the spirit of might that breaks this power of apathy.